So let's kind of hop into it. I have this little project going right now. It's super basic, kick, clap, hat. So I'll play it for you. Super basic, but I think now I have a couple elements that I'm happy with, and now is kind of the point where I would go in and start building out more of kind of the groove and kind of filling up those spaces in between the hats and the claps to add swing and movement and interesting elements in there. So the first thing that I do, and this is a kind of a something that I've been doing a lot recently, is I find a top loop that I really like. Not necessarily a sample like sounds that I like, but a groove and a swing and something that is like interesting to me. So this is one that I've picked out just to kind of save time and I don't have to go searching around in this video. But I really like this one. I'll play it for you. So I thought that had a really nice swing. Everything's off the grid. The velocity changes are really nice. So this is kind of what I want to base my whole track around in terms of groove. So what I like to do is if you right click and you click extract groove, what it'll actually do is it'll go take those transients and turn them into Midi data. And it'll actually put it in the groove pool over here. And you know, for those that haven't used the groove pool much, it's basically a set of parameters that it's telling MIDI or audio to shift or move or change velocity in a certain way. So what we can actually do is drag this into a MIDI file. So what I'll do is kind of extend that out so I can see it a little bit more. And if we add, say, a closed hat to it, let's do this one, we can actually see that it'll play back in that same groove as the top loop. Oop, and it is going to be on C1, so we have to move that to C3. So that has some really nice swing to it, and that would be opposed to it playing back at just a basic 16th note, which would sound like this. So obviously a huge drastic difference. And kind of the whole theory behind this is, okay, we have our groove here and we kind of have our basis of what we want our groove to be. It's very important that from now on, every time we bring in a new element, we need those elements to fall in line with the groove that we've already determined, or else things are going to sound really off. And the example is if I play this 16th with this kind of top loop groove that we want to base our track around, you'll notice that when they play together, they just sound so way off. So it doesn't sound bad, and it doesn't sound like a full-on like DJ train wreck, but there are very clear points where samples are overlapping in a really weird way, and it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound natural to the ear, and it definitely doesn't like make me want to dance. You know, when we play the top loop with this hi-hat that we program with the same groove, you'll notice that I think there's some phasing going on because this sample came from the same pack. But you'll notice that that is just so much more groovy, and they're just working together a little bit more cohesively than the MIDI that is straight on the grid. I went out and picked some elements because I wanted to kind of start adding some percussive elements to kind of start building out the track, like I said, in between like the main hat and the clap. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use this full top loop because I kind of want to build out my own sort of drum section, but what I am going to keep is this little fill here, which I like, and I'm not going to keep that clap, so I'm just clicking a 0 on my keyboard. I really just kind of want these two hats right here that are kind of doing a little fill here, kind of around this main hat and the clap. So that's a nice groovy little bit right there. And now I have a couple more elements here. And I have this little snare sound that I kind of want to add to it. So I kind of liked this hat right here. I didn't really love anything else, but I'm going to kind of see how that sounds when I just kind of shift it over. I'm going to turn it on first. So I kind of just wanted to use these two hats right here, that and that. Everything else can kind of go away, but I kind of But right now, these samples are completely on the grid right here, you'll notice. And they're not necessarily in groove with this kind of hat fill that we already have. And you'll notice when I kind of copy that over here, that these are a little bit off. This one is completely on the grid, and this one is off the grid. So if these were to overlap, again, it's gonna sound a little bit off. I'll play it for you. And again, it's not super noticeable, but to me in my ears, like I can tell that there's a clear kind of like incohesiveness that's going on when I'm playing the drums. So we'll go in and kind of easily fix that. So the reason why I keep this file around is because I use this Midi to kind of help me be a guide to where my percussion hits and hats should hit. So I'll kind of bring this down and I can kind of use this as a guide. So this is completely on the grid, and this is where the swing of that top loop that we got is hitting. So what I can do is cut this out, Command E, and I can shift this over. And I want to be really surgical about it. I want to get it right up as close as I can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think right there, right on that transient, is going to be the best spot for it. And since there's really no MIDI data right here, what I can do is cut this out really fast and put it on the 1. And now I can go in and line this guy up right here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to get it right as close to that transient as we can. Usually add a little bit of fade, just to take out any clicks and pops we might have. And now what we have is two hats that are in groove with the top loop that we sampled early on. So what I will usually do then is Command J, which consolidates, and now when I play this, now these two samples right here, remember this one from the top loop that we cut out and this one that we just programmed and manually applied groove to it, are calling and responding together in a cohesive way, and it's just going to make our drum groove a lot more cohesive, groovy, and danceable. So now I had this other kind of snare that I wanted to program in there. So let me see. I'll just kind of play around and see where I want to place it. So I kind of wanted to do like a kind of like a rim shot almost. So these are on grid, as you can tell, a little bit off from the groove, and you'll notice again it kind of sounds a little bit off. Ever so slightly, but we want to align it with excuse me one second. Drag that out. We want to align it with the MIDI right here, which again is our guide, kind of our groove guide. And we want to line up that hit as close as we can to everything else. So So now this one is in groove and this one is still on the grid, but we obviously want to change that. Again, I'll kind of take that clip and I'll move it around so my guide is exactly where I need it to be. Right there. And I'll kind of extend that out again. And now these snare drums are communicating with the closed hat and the hat from the top loop that we pulled in the beginning. So I can copy that over. So just like that, off of a couple minutes of work, you know, we were able to take elements in and kind of use our knowledge of groove and cohesive groove specifically to kind of resample them and make them fit the overall track. So as I'm building out my overall track, I will keep this piece of MIDI right here, call it groove, and this will be kind of the basis that I build everything out around. So let's go in and maybe find another top loop that we like. And I'm not going to use that delayed part, so what I'm going to do is copy this. I want that to be there. Actually, I want it to be there. And copy this first part. Let's see. So the reason why I was kind of moving this around a little bit, and the reason why I didn't want to use this shot right here, is because I already have these snares kind of working in this section, and I feel like if I keep this where it is, those two sounds are going to clash a little bit together. So I'm really focused on like finding those empty pockets and those empty bits of space and filling them up with the elements that I decide to bring in. So I'm kind of keeping this here. Here, so let's see how this sounds. And that actually might sound good at the end. Yeah, so that sounds pretty good. I'll go ahead and consolidate these together. And now we have a pretty solid top loop. I like the sounds, but again, these grooves are just going to be ever so slightly off. So if this is where that hat is hitting, it's going to be a little off from what we've already programmed with this hat. So what you can do is double click into the audio clip, and then what I like to do is click into here, Command A, which selects them all, and then Command I. And that adds warp markers to all of them. And what this gives us the flexibility to do is move these individual transients exactly where we want them. I've found that in my workflow, what I like to do in addition to adding warp markers is I select all and then I actually quantize them. So I'll click Command U, and you'll notice that all of those will kind of stick to the grid right here. So if I go back, select all, Command U, and those snapped to the grid. And now what I could do, there's a couple different things. I could take this groove file that we extracted in the beginning of the video and click this and drag it onto here. And what that'll do is it'll apply that same groove that we have here in this file and apply it to this audio. Now, the reason why I did what I did in terms of quantization is because if we have this loop right here, if we Command J, like I said, this already has swing applied to it. This top loop has its own swing applied. This is not on grid, as you can tell right here. So if this is on grid, their percussive hit right here is a little bit off. It's not as off as ours, and it doesn't match with ours, but it is off. So without quantizing it, you can't just take this groove pool file and slap it onto here, because it's gonna basically be inaccurate. It's gonna throw stuff way off the grid that's already off the grid, so it doesn't really work. You only want to apply these groove files to a file that you know is quantized. So again, we went in here, we selected all, Command A, and then we Command I, added warp markers to all of them. Select all again, and then Command U, and that's going to add everything on grid to where we want it. Just go in and double check that everything made it on. Looks like this one is like slightly off, but I actually think I'm going to keep it. So yep, everything's on. You might want to change this to complex mode. Let's make sure this is all good. Okay, and now what we can do is take this, since we know it's quantized, and apply that groove onto that audio channel. And we know that that's going to be a much more accurate way to add the groove. What we can do is commit it with this button right here. Now you'll notice that it is a little bit off. So this isn't my favorite way of doing this. I don't completely rely on these AGR files to be correct. I like to do it more manually, but I just kind of wanted to show you that that is kind of the theory behind adding groove files to audio. What I like to do instead is way back here before we we want to quantize it again. I'm doing this like 6 times. Command U. Is I like to do it manually. So again, I already have a feature here, or a percussion here, which I have sampled. What I like to do is open this guy up, zoom in, and I like to move this manually to where I need it. So it looks like right there is going to be kind of on grid with each other. And I need to move all of them. Here and here. There's that, right on grid here. So everything is swung properly. And since I already have this guy here, and I know it's in groove, I can actually just copy all of this over instead of doing it all in here. And then I can add that first bit to here. Then the last thing I have to groove is this guy, but again, we have our Midi file here, which is kind of gonna help us kind of map out like where that hit should happen. So I'll open this up, and I will move that over until it's in line. Again, I like to be really as exact as possible. Move that over right there. I think that works. So just slightly off. Let's see. Yeah, perfect right there. And then looks like that's about on beat as well. Could maybe move slightly over. And then this guy needs to get moved over quite a bit. And now I know that this top loop right here, again, is going to be in groove with our swing that we have kind of set as the bass groove of our track. And that sounds a heck of a lot better than this element, which was going to be way off. So this top loop doesn't have like a whole lot of swing to it, but it would be really pronounced if we added a top loop in there that had all kinds of kind of pre-built in like swing to it. So and this is probably an instance where I wouldn't even want all of this like top loop stuff. I would really just want that like little snare fill. Or let's see, yeah. Let me keep that. So now, basically what we did is we took in these 3 elements that all kind of had their individual groove or no swing, and we basically warped them a little bit and used the tools that we have in Ableton to kind of fit the groove theme of the track, which we set kind of in the earlier stages of the production. So I hope that helps. Again, like this is a really important concept, I think, and a lot of the feedbacks I've done, a lot of the demos that I've heard, it is easy for me to tell that, you know, we're kind of just stacking top loops on with no real purpose. So, you know, it's important that if you are using sample packs and if you are using top loops, that we're able to kind of analyze them a little bit more and figure out how they're being implemented into our track, if they work. And if they don't work and they're not cohesive, you know, we can go in, use warp markers, use the grid to really line those up with our track. And when you do that, everything is gonna sound like it's coming from the same place. Things are gonna call and respond better, and it's gonna make the track just overall feel a little bit more organic and less robotic. And this is one of those things where, again, I think I said it before, it's hard to specifically hear it, you know, like it's not going to stick out like a sore thumb, but it's one of those things that it's just going to be more of like a feeling, you know, it's going to feel off. And a lot of times if you're listening to your track and something feels off and you don't really know why, there's a good chance that it could be, you know, the groove not being cohesive enough. And I think when I was first you know, taking my tracks to that advanced level, this is one of those things that really helped kind of take my tracks from more beginner to real professional groovy house music that's going to be timeless for years to come. So I hope that helps, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Peace.
If you guys are interested in getting feedback on your music and having access to more tutorials and my project files, please click the link in the description to sign up for our Discord Kick and Bass. You can find more information on the website, and we look forward to seeing you there.